Alright, this is Melvin Ramon. Let's talk about music. So I've been seeing some videos around the last few days about box sets. I haven't yet done any jumping on threads or any contests or anything like that. Not that I'm opposed to it, I just haven't yet, since I've been making the videos, been inclined to do it. But today I was sitting around and I thought, hey, I can make myself a box set video. So without further ado, let's start talking about them. First up, my favorite one, the Melvins Endless Residency. This is a set from about 15 years ago of live performances they did of, that thing where a band will go and play all of a classic album all in one show. This is 4 of their albums in an EP, all done. Each double, there's 4 double LP sets, and each set is one of those albums plus an extra thing or two. My favorite of these is, and they all have these kind of hand letter pressed jackets. These are a very soft cardboard, kind of not like anything I've seen. Not really anything special on the inner sleeves, although they do have, custom labels. There's kind of 2 variations in different colors as far as the individual sleeves go. Get a better look at that one. There we go. And you got this in here. They do the albums Bullhead, Lysol, which is done with Colossus of Destiny and the Eggnog EP, and then the albums Stoner Witch and Houdini. The set of them doing Colossus of Destiny, it starts with Colossus of Destiny into Lysol and Eggnog songs kind of mixed up. That is my favorite set of live Melvins. The Melvin in my channel name is a hint that they are my favorite band. That particular set starts out with the Colossus of Destiny, which was a live album they did that isn't really their typical sound. It is in the vein of something like Throbbing Gristle or Wolf Eyes, kind of. It's a long flowing piece that eventually builds into a performance of their song I Flies from their first album. On here they do a shorter version of it. Instead of about an hour, it's about 15 minutes, and it's a much faster, heavier build, so even people who have not preferred Colossus of Destiny, which is one of their more underappreciated albums, I think might like that take. And then they go into I Flies, and then songs from Lysol and Eggnog that are in the slow, heavy droning style that was a huge influence on bands like Sun and Boris and Earth. And then, kind of created that drone metal, and also things like Neurosis. So it's a really heavy, crushing set that I just think is really, really great. The lineup on this one is the lineup where they had Big Business in the band, so it's a double drummer lineup. It's crushingly heavy. The take on the album Bullhead is great. That's one of my favorite Melvins albums. This is the second release they have of them performing Houdini in its entirety. This is a different lineup. I think this one's a little heavier, but a little less noisier. I love both of them, but I think the set in there is even better. And they also do Stoner Witch with there's a lot of drumming, big drumming moments on that album, so the double drummer lineup, it sounds really great. That was a limited edition. They sold at some of the later shows when they were doing that tour. CD sets. This was a limited edition, the European version. I was fortunate enough to talk my friend who runs the record store I work at into letting me put it on the store's credit card and pay it off over a month. I mean, it was, I don't know, probably $250 at the time. And it's one of my favorite things I own. I'm really stoked on that one. And I don't get to pull it out that often because I'm always kind of scared to handle it. One of my other very favorite things is this set. This is Orphans. We'll flip it up down there by Tom Waits so you can get both of them. This is a set of, it was originally a triple CD. Those CDs are each represented with a double album. And then there is an additional album of even more songs. This is a project that was, I can pull that out. It's been a little while since I pulled this out. I don't know. It's got plastic inner sleeves and custom labels. These were the original Orphan sets were reissued on Record Store a couple days ago, or a couple years ago as 3 double LP sets. Those are, unfortunately the cover on those isn't really neat, that nice. I didn't buy those because I had this. The 3 sets are Brawlers, Ballers, and Bastards. The Brawlers are his kind of bluesy, beef-hearty bluesy numbers. Ballers are the more sappy piano ballad type things he does. Bastards are kind of the weirder things like the spoken word pieces or more avant-garde or theatrical pieces he does. It's constructed of, it was B-sides, rarities, some outtakes, and then some new songs he recorded, and some of the old B-sides and rarities and older songs he had re-recorded or recorded new parts for or remixed. So everything on here sounds of a piece, and the box set doesn't annotate where any of it comes from, so it's real hard to pick out at points where in his career. You can kind of only guess where in his career when these might have been recorded, but as one big chunk of stuff, there's a lot of his best stuff on here. In fact, Brawlers and Bastards would both be in my top 5 Tom Waits albums. Finding that set is pretty difficult. I would suggest if anyone's a big Tom Waits fan and doesn't have that stuff, though, that picking up the double LP sets that were released is well worth it because that material is fantastic. Speaking of kind of boozy rock stuff, this is Lucero, live from Atlanta. This is a bag it came in when I bought it from their merch table. It's just individual sleeves in here. This is a double live album done as a 4 LP set that they did. I'm a fan of Lucero's albums. They're great, but the real magic with them is the live show. So having this to dive into, I think is just fantastic. Great stuff if you're a fan of them, if you're a fan of cowpunk or kind of, bluesy, stonesy rock and roll. Those guys you could do a lot worse than looking into those guys. Up next here, you can see I don't pull this out often. This was a Record Store Day thing from very early in the Record Store Day existence. This is GZA Liquid Swords. It's just the album itself. I think maybe the instrumental one's in here, but what's really neat is it comes with a chess set. Then there is kind of a cool booklet with lyrics and the chessboard. Lyrics for everything on the album. This is, of course, a seminal New York hip-hop album. Let's see if I can get this image in there. Yeah. And this is a pretty neat way to have it. Not actually practical. Unfortunately, pulling it out, having to deal with all that stuff just to listen to the album doesn't happen as often as I'd like it to, but it's a great album and it's a neat presentation of it. Coming up next here, this is Everybody Knows We Got Nowhere, the deluxe version from the band Heads. They are space rock acid punk band from England. I'm trying to remember exactly which city. It came with this record bag that is actually a little small, and I don't think actually fits a record, but it's it's a pretty cool bag. It includes the original double album, big old psychedelic gatefold. As for what they sound like, Jello Biafra once described this band as like chrome with two Helios creeds. Whoops, I have it upside down. Sorry, this is a double live album that came in it, or no, this is the outtakes. This includes outtakes and B-sides on a double album. There is a CD of more outtakes, I think is what's on that, and a live album. See if I can get that out there. Lots of cool stuff in this box. If you like acid rock, punk, you know, like weirder, spacier punk rock stuff, stoner rock, because they do kind of veer into some territory that sounds, you know, a lot like the more psychedelic-oriented stoner rock bands. This is a huge poster of the cover. I'm not going to be able to get on camera even if I do unfold. There's another poster here of kind of a blurry, spaced out image. Anyway, lots of cool stuff came with this box set. You know, if you're into cool, heavy psych stuff, this is fantastic and absolutely well worth hunting down. And if you're just in just their regular albums in general, they have a ton of them. All the ones I've heard are fantastic. This is one of my favorite of them, but you know, they've got plenty of good ones to keep you busy. Up next is Pere Ubu, Elitism for the People. Pere Ubu are they describe their sound as avant garage. There was a band in Cleveland in the mid-70s called Rocket from the Tombs. Rocket from the Tombs split up. Half of them became Pere Ubu and half of them became the Dead Boys. Pere Ubu retained that raw, garagey, proto-punk sound, but also kind of in a weird experimental side that prefigured a lot of new wave and especially post-punk. This is their first album that's included in this set. This is an absolute classic to me, just a phenomenal album, one of my very favorites. This is their second album, Dub Housing, also a very seminal album. I tend to actually prefer the first album. Most people, I think, prefer Dub Housing. Both are fantastic. This is a collection of singles. Some of these singles, there's another comp of these singles called the Tenant. No, it's oh, and now on my camera, and I am just totally blanking on the name of one of my favorite albums. Even sorry, but it's out there. I'll probably have to include it in the comments. The name of it, but 30 Seconds Over Tokyo, Heart of Darkness, Final Solution are just fantastic songs if you're into proto-punk or new wave or post-punk. You definitely want to hear these. And then there's a live album from Max's Kansas City in 1977 included in this set. This is the first of, I think they've got 4 of them out, where there are, each set has 2 of their albums and then or 3 of their albums and then a collection of rarities from that era. I have another one. I'm not showing that on camera because a puppy we had got at a corner of it. But you know, they all have a similar color cover design. It's a decent press in the albums, and this is classic stuff. And they're reasonably priced, so it's a good way to kind of explore the catalog of Pere Ubu. And then, where am I in time-wise? What the heck? Next up, the Flaming Lips, 1994 to 97, Heady Nugs. This, what does it say, 20 years after Clouds Taste Metallic. So this is stuff from around the era of their Clouds Taste Metallic album. The Flaming Lips got popular kind of a couple years later with a very different sound. But their early albums are some of my favorite music ever made. This includes that album and includes an EP from the era that I was always fond of called Providing Needles for Your Balloons. It's got a couple of Christmas songs, just blown out live performance of their song Slow Nerve Action, and a cover of an Alan Vega song. It's a pretty great little EP. There's another rarities collection in here of some pretty great stuff. Sunrise from Alice Cooper is one of the covers they do on this. Actually need to pull this out. I haven't listened to this in a while. That's pretty good. And a live performance from Seattle in 1996. I saw them on this tour. Man, was that ever one of the most memorable shows I had seen. They had, at the time, you can kind of see it a little bit in this picture, like in the background, but they had been on a big tour with the band Candlebox, who were, you know, kind of a Pearl Jam following grunge band, and they had made more money than they had ever made at that point, and I swear they had spent every dime on Christmas lights. They had the entire back of the stage, all the way around the balcony of the building, and all of their instruments covered with Christmas lights, and they turned those things on all at once. It was like Las Vegas. You could kind of barely see them moving in the shadows of the light. Really awesome performance. And that era of the band it's a much noisier, more rock band kind of thing than what a lot of people know them for. I love that era. Between that era and the one they got known, they did this, which is an interesting thing. This was also done as a record store day thing years ago. This is an album called Zaireeka. This is, it was originally released as a CD set in the late 90s. They had gone through an era where their guitar player left and they weren't sure what to do next. So they had gone around, the leader of the band, Wayne Coyne, had made a bunch of individual tapes with song parts. He did it first in a parking lot with cars using their stereos, and then bought a bunch of boom boxes and did some performances where he would have people with pressing play on these tapes, like kind of conducting it like an orchestra and creating a giant orchestra out of pre-taped parts. After experimenting with that for a while, they had learned some things, and they designed this set to be played. It's 4 CDs. They are intended to all be played at once on different players. The idea of that being that they had noticed that CD players and turntables don't all play exactly at the same rate, so that you would start the recording and it would be this harmonious and very almost symphonic and loud doubling of the sound, but then as things went out of sync throughout the rest of the play, it would get more and more discordant and cacophonious. And he had this concept idea of things working together being helpful and positive, and then he had a big eureka moment, and he had seen on the news some riots in the nation of Zaire. So he put those together as Zaireeka, and the idea being that when seen together, when things are syncing, they're beautiful and harmonious. When they start falling apart, just seen from a different angle, the same things can become chaotic. And not only is the music all designed to work as it's kind of falling apart while it's playing, but the lyrical themes of the whole album are around similar ideas. It's kind of ridiculous to have it on vinyl because who's going to do it on 4 turntables, but I've done it before with one on a turntable and a couple on CD players. One time I did actually manage to get enough people and play all the CDs together at one time. It is a really unique and interesting piece. I don't know of anybody else who's tried anything quite like that. Actually, Boris does have an album that's a double set meant to be played at the same time. That's the only time I've ever seen anyone else do that. this is it's a really, like I said, it's a really unique experience. You don't really get anything like that anywhere else. So it's one of my favorite box sets to play with, because it's just such a unique experience, and the sound. You get different pieces. Each of the discs has a different piece of the song. You know, like one song will have the bass and drum part. Another CD you'll have the guitar parts. Another CD you'll have the vocal parts, and you can kind of control the volumes in different ways and almost mix it yourself. You can go around and find on YouTube people have taken them and mixed them together using various software programs, and those are always neat. But it's never really the same effect as that entire set. Alright, well that's all the stuff I pulled out for this round. I do have more box sets, so, you know, I might try a round 2 soon. Anyway, thank you for watching, and have a great night. Everybody stay healthy, safe, and sane.